If you're approaching the hurdle of CELTA written assignments, you'd probably love me to tell you that AI could do them for you. Well, I can't say that, but this video will take you through how it can support you with the assignment that's seen by a lot of CELTA trainees as the scary one, the language-related task. Interested? Keep watching. I'm Jo Gakonga. I'm a teacher educator and I've been a CELTA trainer and assessor for over 20 years. I've also got a website at elttraining.com where I make video-based support material for English language teachers at all stages of their careers. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I make a new video every week. The elephant in almost any educational room at the moment is AI, so let's address it. Before we do though, as with any of these videos I've got on CELTA assignments and AI, make sure you check with your tutors before you use AI in any way. Different centres have different rules for this and you don't want to fall foul of them. There are always two important things to keep in mind. The first is that using AI is just like using any other reference material. You need to be transparent in how you use it. This means citing it. And because responses are different every time you put in a prompt, you need to make sure that you begin a new search for every assignment and copy the share link or take screenshots to show your prompts and how you adapted the material that you got through the chat. In that way, you can show that the work's your own. The second is that, again, as with any reference material, but even more so, you need to make sure that you're engaging critically with whatever AI gives you. It's less reliable than grammar books generally, or dictionaries like the Cambridge Learner Dictionary Online. Okay, with those caveats and provisos out of the way, AI is a helpful friend and it will be really useful in your teaching life. So it seems to me it's a good idea to learn how to take best advantage of it. This language-related task assignment is the one where you have to analyse grammar, vocabulary and functional language for teaching purposes. And it's often the one that candidates worry about. And to be honest, it's often the one that has to be resubmitted for changes. It's a skill you need to learn. And for many trainees, they feel a serious lack of knowledge of grammar terminology. So if you feel this way, my Grammar for Language Teachers course has helped thousands of trainees and it's recommended by centres all over the world. Just saying. The big question, can AI help with this assignment? The main thing to understand is that it can't do it for you, and it's still useful to use more traditional reference sources as well. A dictionary for vocabulary and a reference book like Murphy or Parrott or Swan for grammar structures, for example. AI can give you a lot of help, but it can also get confused with the language of the context. So let me walk you through a couple of examples and we'll see. Here's an item of vocabulary, pension. Let's assume we want to analyse this for teaching purposes in the context of my dad worked as a farmer for most of his life, but he retired when he was 60 and started to draw his pension. This is what a dictionary will give you: meaning, the form and the pronunciation. It tells us it's a B2 level word, gives us a clear definition that we can turn into concept check questions. We've got the pronunciation here with the stress and the phonemic transcription, and the form here. It's a countable noun, and here are some common collocations. Let's see what AI gives us in terms of meaning, form and pronunciation. I asked Gemini first, and as you can see, it gives us these and a lot of other information. Some parts of this are definitely more helpful than others. So as I said before, you need to approach the information critically. It gives us a definition, okay, but I'm not sure that in their golden years is so great, and I wouldn't include it for learners. It does give us alternative meanings though, and I can see that the boarding house one is useful to consider as it's a false friend in a lot of European languages. ChatGPT gives the same thing, but it also includes some teaching tips that personally I think are a bit dodgy. If you look at these ideas, they fall into the same traps that CELTA trainees often do. They're explaining the concept of a pension as if the person you were teaching it to didn't know what one was. Now, your adult learners do know what a pension is. They know it's important to plan for the future. They just don't know what the word for it is in English. In terms of the form, Gemini tells us that the noun is the most common form and also gives us a verb form that I think is rather unusual. I can see to pension someone off, but I think to pension is pretty unusual, and I wouldn't include it in a language analysis. Like the dictionary, it gives us related words: pensioner, yes, and pensionable. I think I'd only use that in the expression pensionable age. ChatGPT is more straightforward, tells us it's a noun, not whether it's countable or not, and it also includes its etymology, which is definitely not needed in a language analysis. Moving on to the pronunciation, ChatGPT gives us a simple transcription, great, but then this huge amount of linguistic information that's just not needed for this assignment. Gemini doesn't give us a transcription here, but you can prompt it to do it later. And it suggests practicing similar words like tension. But according to the Cambridge Dictionary and my intuition, this is also a B2 level word, so they might not know it. I asked Gemini to give me concept check questions for pension and got this response. I think this first one is really useful, but the next one could easily be misleading. Is the person on the beach just relaxing? Do they have to be getting a pension? The next ideas are quite helpful. These are words which could be confused, but the other questions don't seem so good to me, although some could work. What do you think? I hate the bonus idea. How are you supposed to act that out? Don't do it. I asked ChatGPT to do the same, and this is what I got. And although it's maybe over-egging the pudding, these definitely cover the meaning of pension. Let's try with a grammar structure. Here's an example. I've been really busy this year. It's true. The present perfect for unfinished time. The being busy is still true now. Oh yes, but the time is ongoing. We're still in this year. If we look in a grammar book like Parrot, we get potential difficulties with the meaning and the form, and he tells us how to form the tense. This does, of course, make the assumption that you know what the tense is called. If you don't, you might think AI could help with that, so let's try it. This was my first attempt, and although it's got the right meaning, it's actually misidentified the tense. I asked it again, and it got it right, but I think this is another lesson in don't take everything it says at face value. This time it gave me a much more accurate answer and an explanation that I thought was very user-friendly. For the sake of completeness, I asked Gemini 2, this time using the same marker sentence that Parrot uses so that I could compare like to like, and got this, which again, useful and reasonable, but for the pronunciation, it gave me this, which isn't accurate here. Had can be weak, like this, but in this case, it's a past participle, it's the main lexical verb, so it's not weak, it says had. Using reference books also has the advantage that they come from writers with experience of the difficulties faced by learners, so they'll give you other useful information that you might not think to ask. Examples like these rules of thumb that might not always be helpful from Parrot, or this summary of the differences between the present perfect simple and continuous. We need to check meaning. So I asked Gemini first. These are either inaccurate, one of the accidents could be today, or else rather convoluted and not very clear and helpful, I think. ChatGPT did much better with this. CCQ question number 1, though, uses the target language, and number 2 focuses on the context. So neither of those is great. Some of the others, though, are sensible and useful. And as with all of this, as I keep saying, you have to take a critical approach. Moving on, as part of the language-related task and of your teaching practice, you'll often be asked to analyse functional language, a piece of language that fulfills a particular purpose in the language, advising, persuading, expressing likes, things like that. These functional exponents, as they're called, are often phrases, so they're less easy to look up in a dictionary or a grammar book, and AI can be really helpful here. I gave ChatGPT and Gemini the task of analysing how about going for a drive, and this is what I got. Mostly pretty useful. Note that whatever you ask as concept check questions, Gemini seems to automatically throw this up as a bonus, and it's usually ridiculous. The overall message here is that AI can give you really useful information about analysing language, but you're going to have to be a bit careful about what you choose to use. So checking your information from AI against a grammar book or a dictionary will help you to make sure that your information's accurate, and also it'll widen your understanding of the forms that you're analysing, so that's good. Remember, you also need to cite all sources you use, whether that's grammar books, dictionaries, AI, and with the latter in particular, you need to share the link to the chat and maybe screenshots of the relevant parts of the chat to show you haven't simply cut and pasted things. As I said right at the beginning, also check with your tutors when they set the assignment about the centre's policy on AI. I hope that this helps, and good luck with all of your language analyses.